There are characters that leave a mark, monsters so unforgettable that even in silence they sear themselves into your mind. And of course, the Predator was one of them. In the 80s, he burst onto the screen, mixing it up with Schwarzenegger, and from that moment, the franchise never stopped. Time and again, people declared the Predator dead, but they were wrong. After Prey, the saga took a massive leap. So in this video, we're going to journey through the entire franchise and discover how this creature went from experiment to legend. Without further ado, let's begin. The Predator appeared in 1987, when action cinema was at its peak. The story was simple, but that didn't make it any less powerful. A team of elite commandos led by Dutch, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is sent into the Central American jungle supposedly to rescue hostages, or so they think. Once they dive into the jungle, they realize something is stalking them. Something not human, something they can't even see. One by one, the hardest men fall like they're nothing, until only Dutch remains, in a brutal one-on-one with a creature that seems unstoppable. An alien hunter who can camouflage, sees in thermal vision, wields otherworld weapons, and who isn't in the jungle to invade or conquer, but to hunt. What's most interesting is that the Predator was born almost as a joke. In Hollywood, it was joked that after Rocky Balboa had fought every boxer imaginable, the only battle left was punching an alien. So scriptwriters Jim and John Thomas, then novices, thought it was a brilliant idea and wrote the first draft of what would become Predator. Fox bought the project and put Joel Silver on board as producer. Silver had just done Commando with Schwarzenegger, and for a while this new project was thought to be Commando 2. The idea? Send John Matrix, Arnold's Commando character, to fight an alien in the jungle. But the concept morphed, the names changed, and Predator ended up becoming, unofficially, a kind of spiritual sequel to Commando. It wasn't easy though. The original Predator design was very different, much thinner, odd, almost ridiculous. And the actor inside the suit was none other than Jean-Claude Van Damme, who complained endlessly about the heat in the suit, the discomfort, and looked far too short next to Schwarzenegger. So he was let go, the character was redesigned, and they brought in Kevin Peter Hall, a 7 feet 2 inches giant who gave the Predator the intimidating presence we remember. Behind the scenes, the stories stack up. For example, the mud Dutch used to camouflage himself was real, and Schwarzenegger suffered shooting those scenes, freezing cold, covered head to toe in mud in the Mexican jungle. The green fluorescent blood of the Predator? They improvised it, glow stick liquid mixed with gelatine. And the legendary bicep handshake between Dutch and Dylan, yes, that brute flex duel became a meme before memes existed. With a budget of $15 million, the film grossed over $98 million. But beyond money, Predator carved its place as one of the great action/sci-fi classics of the 80s. When it premiered, the critics didn't quite understand it, considered it simple and even silly. But regardless of what experts thought, the audience was captivated by the creature design. So much so that letters poured into the studio requesting a sequel, or at least a comic to follow up these hunters. And that's when the real phenomenon began. Over time, the Predator found its niche. It went from a just another shoot 'em up to the birth of an icon. A monster that didn't need to talk or explain to imprint itself onto collective memory. Obviously, with the interest building, Fox didn't hesitate to keep the franchise moving. So, in 1990, the jungle's deadliest hunter returned, but this time to the city, facing off against Danny Glover in Predator 2. This sequel takes us to Los Angeles in a near future, as imagined in 1990, facing crime, heat, gang wars. In the eye of this chaos appears a Predator. But the protagonist this time is not an elite commando, it's a regular cop. Mike Harrigan, Danny Glover, a hardened guy used to narcos, gangbangers, and every trouble the city throws. What he doesn't expect is an alien hunter. Bringing the Predator into an urban environment wasn't random. After the success of the original, they had to do something different, and anyway, Schwarzenegger didn't return. Some say money, others say he was busy. So Fox changed the formula. New setting, new lead, same essence. Filming wasn't smooth either. They shot in gritty LA neighborhoods so real that production had to stop more than once for actual security reasons. Kevin Peter Hall returned in the suit, now heavier and bulkier than before. But the real twist came at the end. When Harrigan enters the Predator ship, we don't just see his trophy room. We see several Predators. A game-changer moment. It made clear we weren't looking at a solo monster, but a whole clan. An alien culture with rules, honor codes, and home rituals. That detail, plus the famous xenomorph skull in the wall, was the first strong nod to a much bigger universe, and obviously planted seeds for everything that followed. This time the budget was $35 million, grossing around $57 million worldwide. Not a failure, but far from the original's impact. The critics hated it. Having disliked the first, this one didn't stand a chance. Many said it was more violent, dirtier, but had lost all the suspense of the first. In some ways, they're right. Predator 2 lacks the shadow-hunting elegance of the original. Here, everything is chaos, explicitly bloody, daylight kills. And yes, there are scenes you literally can't follow properly. So the film does feel very different. Not worse, necessarily, but much less subtle, much more brutal. And for some, that was an issue. Still, Predator 2 had ideas ahead of its time. It expanded the universe, showed a culture behind the Predator, and left multiple pathways open. It didn't simply repeat the jungle formula. It took risks. And although it didn't do well initially, today many fans see it differently. Not a great film, but a bold sequel unafraid to be different. Then the franchise went quiet for some years, but that xenomorph skull, it kept nagging fans. Comics, video games, fan art all pointed toward the same dream. Predator vs. Alien. And that day finally came. In 2004, Alien vs. Predator hit theaters. This time the story takes us to Antarctica. A satellite detects a strange heat source beneath the ice. A magnate named Charles Wayland raises an expedition. What they discover is an ancient buried pyramid mixed with human ancient architecture. Inside, predators use this place to train by hunting xenomorphs. Humans? Same as always, stuck in the middle. Behind the camera was Paul W. S. Anderson, the same guy who directed Mortal Kombat in 1995. He knew how to adapt beloved properties, though not always perfectly. In this Versus film, he tried to preserve the spirit of both sagas, but had to compromise. The studio insisted on a PG-13 rating, less blood, less graphic violence, and for a duel between predators and aliens, that hurt. Still, the production scale was large. Massive sets in Prague, rubber suits, practical effects, and details linking to the alien universe, like the Wayland-Yutani connection. The budget was $60 million. Global box office over $170 million. A commercial success. The critics? Different story. Weak characters, basic plot, forced dialogue, and the tone mismatched expectations. For many, this Versus was far from Alien or Predator. More fan fantasy than great film. And admittedly, they have a point. Alien vs. Predator aims high, but at its core, it's two icons slugging it out in a pyramid. For those of us who wanted exactly that, though, it delivered. The era of versus everything was in full swing. Freddy vs. Jason, rumors of Chucky vs. Leprechaun, even Doll the Killer vs. Chucky. It was wild. Fortunately, things didn't entirely collapse, but Alien vs. Predator did happen, and it was the first official crossover that fulfilled its promise. Fox saw the numbers and quickly greenlit the sequel. When it seemed things couldn't get darker, they got literally darker. In 2007 came Aliens vs. Predator, Requiem, promising to fix everything the previous film left undone. More blood, more violence, an R rating, an open war between aliens and predators. Sounds good in theory, and it was brutal in practice, but the execution faltered. The story picks up where the last one left off. Inside the Predator ship, a dead hunter leads to a new creature, the Predalien, a brutal mix of both species. The ship crashes on Earth, and the Predalien plus facehuggers infect a small Colorado town. To contain the chaos, a veteran predator known by fans as Wolf arrives, hunter of hunters. His mission: cleanse everything, aliens, humans, anything. The rest? A massacre. The directors were the brothers Strauss, ex-special effects guys making their directing debut. Their goal? Return to the dark roots of both franchises, and in that sense, they succeeded more or less. Requiem has hardcore scenes, explicit deaths, moments for a film like this that are risky. But the main problem was technical, the lighting. The film is so dark that in many scenes you cannot tell what's happening. I don't mean metaphorically, you literally don't see anything. The budget was smaller, about $40 million, and though it made about $130 million worldwide, the franchise felt wounded. Critics raised it. Basic script, characters you don't care about, and the filming style was criticized. Requiem feels like a low-budget horror video game, dark and confusing, with only the Predator really interesting. You sense the only reason to watch is the Predator himself. Everyone else is background noise. If you ask me, the letdown hit fans hard because instead of reviving the franchise, it buried it into B-movie territory, far from where it once stood. After this, Fox realized a new direction was needed. The cheap crossover idea was done. They had to go back to basics. In 2010, after the Requiem setback, Fox hit reset with Predators, a return to roots, but with a twist. The film opens hard. A group of men plummets from sky to planet without knowing how or why. When they regroup, they realize none of them are innocent. They're killers, soldiers, mercenaries, mafiosos, dangerous people all around. And the biggest detail, this isn't Earth. It's another planet, like Earth but designed for the hunt. This time, the humans aren't the prey alone. They're hunted by a pack of new, larger, more aggressive predators, a new breed that trains by hunting and now treat humans like toys. Behind the project stood Robert Rodriguez, Sin City, Planet Terror. He didn't direct, but he produced and oversaw everything. His dirty, wild, half-B-movie luxe aesthetic is present. The director was Nimrod Antal, who delivered the spirit of the original. Fun fact, the script originated from Rodriguez writing it in the mid-90s. Fox had once found it too big to film, but after years of franchise fatigue, it sounded like the fresh air they needed. Budget around $40 million, global gross over $125 million. Enough to prove interest remained if done with respect. Critically, it did well. Many saw Predators as the true spiritual sequel to the 1987 film. A return to the idea of hard men being hunted in a hostile environment. No wasted dialogue, no convoluted backstory. Adrian Brody as Royce was a surprise. Nobody expected him as an action lead, but he held his own. The supporting cast, Danny Trejo, Walton Goggins, Mahershala Ali, Lawrence Fishburne, added major weight. The film also included fan nods. Dutch's jungle mission is referenced, distinct predator classes explored, and we get a katana duel between a Yakuza and a predator in the field. Still, some consider Predators a weak link in the franchise, but personally it's one of my favorites, not just for action or design, but because it honors the Predator's core. Being isolated, hunted, unsure if you'll see Dawn. At the end of the day, it didn't revolutionize, but it got what made the Predator great. Then the path looked clear, until Hollywood intervened. In 2018 came The Predator and things got strange again. After years of pause, the franchise had its big return. It was directed by Shane Black, who had acted in the original 1987 film as one of Dutch's squad. In theory, he understood the Predator's spirit, but in practice, doubts existed. His prior directing credit, Iron Man 3, a film many consider one of the weaker Marvel entries. His other film, The Nice Guys, was solid but not exactly Predator genre proof. The Predator wasn't a superhero, it was brutality, suspense, and pure survival. That needed careful handling. The story begins when a Predator ship crashes on Earth mid-military operation. A sniper, Quinn McKenna, comes into contact with alien tech. Meanwhile, the Predator on Earth, seemingly a fugitive, is captured. But there's worse. A genetically enhanced super predator arrives to hunt it and wipe out everything. McKenna joins a ragtag team of problem soldiers called the Loonies, along with a scientist dragged into the mess, and his autistic son decodes the Predator tech and becomes pivotal. The story is messy and full of conveniences, and that's because the shoot was chaotic. Last-minute rewrites, near-complete third-act reshoots, tonal shifts, studio pressure, and even off-screen scandals. The budget was huge at $88 million, global box office around $160 million. By Hollywood standards, a moderate flop. Critics mirrored the film's chaos. They praised some action beats and dark humor, but the tone was muddled. Was it action, sci-fi, horror, comedy, all of the above? For a franchise like Predator, this was a cardinal sin. And we have to mention the finale, the Predator Killer, an armor suit built so humans can hunt predators like Iron Man. That part disconnected everything. No one asked for that. We wanted primal hunt, survival. After this, the franchise wobbled again. But when all seemed lost, someone had a different idea. Not push forward, look back. In 2022, when no one expected, the Predator returned. And not just returned, but came back stronger. Prey is a prequel, a story set centuries before the previous films. In 1719, in Comanche territory, the protagonist is Naru, a young tribal woman who wants to prove she can be a great hunter, not because she has to, but because she knows she has what it takes. Everything changes when an alien hunter arrives in her land, one that doesn't look for easy prey or want attention. It's the predator in its most primal form, hunting in a savage world. What hits first is the simplicity. The film returns to the core concept that made the original great: pure survival. No forced jokes, no unnecessary exposition, just one human pitted against an alien, wit against brute force. The director was Dan Trachtenberg of 10 Cloverfield Lane. Instead of analyzing what went wrong with the last films, he asked, what worked in Predator originally? The answer was clear: the hunt, the tension, one human versus something clearly above them. It returned to old school. The shoot used real locations in Canada, minimal CGI, huge respect for Comanche culture, even a full version of the film dubbed in their language. The budget was about $65 million. It didn't get a theatrical release, thanks Disney, and instead landed on streaming. But it was a home run. It became the most viewed premiere in Hulu's history and won over both critics and audience. On Rotten Tomatoes, it scored 93% approval. It's a hit. Simple, effective, brutal, respectful, everything the Predator did wrong, Prey fixed. Personally, this film felt like a breath of fresh air. It showed you didn't need bigger, louder, or more complicated. You just needed the fundamentals, good characters in a hostile world where survival meant everything. And as cherry on top, Prey drops a subtle Easter egg. At the end, Naru receives an antique pistol inscribed Raphael Adolini, 1715. The exact same weapon that over 300 years later Predator's hunters would give to Harrigan in Predator 2. A perfect connective detail that ties the saga organically. So after many ups and downs, the Predator came back in its best shape. But Trachtenberg wasn't done. After Prey reignited the saga, he took a creative leap no live-action film could pull off. That's how Predator Killer of Killers was born, a bold animated anthology that turns the Yautja mythology into pure visual legend. Instead of one story, it unfolds across 3 eras of blood and glory: a Viking raider chasing honor, a Japanese assassin bound by stealth, and a World War II pilot caught in a sky he no longer controls. Each faces a different predator, each duel revealing how the hunt adapts, century after century. Directed by Dan Trachtenberg and Joshua Wasung, the animation pushes for cinematic realism. Motion-captured weight, painterly lighting, and slow-motion brutality that feels like love, death, and robots colliding with 1987's jungle grit. The action is visceral and poetic. Blades against plasma, smoke mixing with thermal vision, warriors tested to the edge of death. But beneath the carnage lies something deeper. Killer of Killers finally makes Yautja official canon, exploring the clans, the weapons, and the hierarchy of these hunters. Some are towering warlords, others silent assassins, each guided by a creed of honor and evolution. More than a showcase of violence, it's a meditation on what the Predator truly is. Not a monster, but a believer. Every kill is a ritual, every sparing of a worthy opponent an act of faith. It's the first entry to show the hunt not as random slaughter, but as a sacred tradition stretching across worlds and time. And as the trilogy ends, 3 trophies side by side, from axe to katana to dog tag, we finally see the shape of the legend forming. Killer of Killers bridges the old and the new, the primal brutality of Prey and the grand mythology that leads straight into the franchise's next project. It's proof that the Predator story isn't bound to Earth, or even to humanity. The hunt has become universal, almost eternal, echoing across centuries, carried by warriors, blood, and code. Now, fast forward to today. Alien is back with Alien Romulus. Its director has already said he'd love to see xenomorphs and predators clash again, and the Predator franchise is not waiting around, because the next step is Predator, Badlands. And now comes the interesting part. After Prey, Dan Trachtenberg is back to push the franchise forward with Predator, Badlands. This time, the Predator is not just the threat, he's the protagonist. The film follows Dek, a young Yautja who has been cast out of his clan, and his tense alliance with Thea, portrayed by Ellie Fanning, and at points her twin Tessa. Deck will be performed by Demetrius Schuster Koloamatangi in a suit built by Studio Gillis, using motion capture for facial performance and additional practical work by Weta Workshop. So we're talking about a Predator design that's more stylized, faster, but still brutal, which explains why some fans love the look and others complained. The story is set on a remote planet in a future timeline. This is important because it finally moves Predator away from human military mission gone wrong, and into this is how the Yautja operate when humans are not the center of the universe. For the first time in a film, they created a coherent Predator language, developed with a professional linguist, so Yautja dialogue isn't just roars, it's a culture. And the biggest fan service detail? Weyland Yutani shows up. That name immediately connects Predator to the alien continuity, just like the Xenomorph skull did in Predator 2 and like the AVP films pushed later. Add to that Badlands is counted as the 7th main Predator film, 9th overall, and that Marvel is preparing a prequel comic, and it's obvious. They want Predator to stay evergreen, flexible, and always one step away from doing another Alien crossover. Exactly what the director of Alien Romulus said he wanted. So, after a jungle hunt, an urban war, a pyramid full of xenomorphs, a failed genetic experiment, and a Comanche showdown, Predator is still alive because it has what very few monsters have: a code. It doesn't kill to kill, it hunts to prove itself. And now that we're finally going to see an outcast Predator on a wild planet with Weyland Yutani lurking around, the door with Alien is open again. Tell me in the comments, do you want another AVP or do you prefer Predator to stay on its own track like Prey? Drop a like, subscribe so you don't miss the breakdown of Badlands when it drops, and tell me which saga you want next. Thanks for watching, and we continue the hunt in the next episode.